Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm very glad you're here because today is actually a special event. Today is the day that we have finally gotten our first request for a video. However, before I start, I would like to very quickly give a trigger warning, a small trigger warning, because eating disorders will be mentioned throughout this video. However, I wouldn't personally say that there's anything super NSFW or graphic about anything that I say, but you never know. So I'd still like to give that warning anyways, just in case there's anyone out there sensitive to that kind of information. So, that being said, the comment itself comes from Dustin Dude. I remember seeing you in the comments of my first video. Don't think I forgot you. So, anyways, he asks, can you talk about your experiences going out in public dressed more femininely or about coming out to family friends? Now, unfortunately, I do have to say I'm actually not as far in my Femboy journey as you may think. I'm only out to 4 of my friends and my brother and his partner, who all accepted it pretty well, but I haven't actually gone outside in my clothing very much at all, and I haven't come out to anyone in my family. The main reason for that is because my brother came out as pan to our parents, and it didn't tend to go very well. They still accepted him as a person. They weren't going to kick him out of the house or anything, but they were disappointed for religious reasons. Both of my parents are pretty vehemently homophobic, so it was pretty much destined not to go properly. So personally, I've adopted the mindset that I'm probably never going to come out to them unless I end up doing something like getting married to a guy, which is definitely possible. But if it doesn't happen, then personally I feel like there's no reason that they need to know, just because, I don't know, my relationships I feel like are more personal than that. But if a time ever came that I decided to bring a male partner to something like family gathering, then I guess some explaining would have to be done. So, to be honest with you, it's not the most thought out plan in the world, but it's currently what I have going. While I can't talk about dressing and going out in public that way, I can still talk about my experiences going out in public, however, because, believe it or not, I have gone outside before. And, people definitely treat me a little bit differently because of the fact that I naturally look pretty feminine. I remember being commented on once for having very feminine hands whenever I gave a guy a handshake. And one of my friends, who was one of the most popular people in my school, he was top of his class, absolute amazing guy, but he knew a lot of people very, very well, and said that apparently there were a lot of guys attracted to me that I did not know about. So, yeah, there was definitely a perception about me that I guess was floating around. And in my school, there was definitely an interesting environment of people joking around about wearing dresses and short shorts and stuff like that. A lot of athletic guys doing it too. The people that are generally more homophobic than others. Not to say that all athletic people are homophobic. That's not what I'm saying at all. But specifically, this group of kids at my school tended to lean more that way. Thankfully, though, some of them were pretty nice. They would just say things like, they would have a don't bring it around me type of attitude, which isn't perfectly accepting, but I guess it's better than the alternative of being completely against it. So that's at least a step in the right direction in my book. And there was also some pretty interesting stuff about the culture at my school, if that makes sense. I remember that there were a lot of guys that would be jokingly gay with each other, which is not a new thing. I mean, a lot of guys do it for one reason or another, but in my band, there was literally a circle of guys that would jokingly kiss each other in front of everybody. I'm not even kidding. Now, I personally was not too much a fan of this, just because I had experiences with people in my band, like, slapping me in places that I'm sure you could guess about, and I didn't like that very much. But at the same time, I was pretty powerless to do anything about it, and at the very least I knew that I was still safe because they would never take it farther than that. But there was also that culture, I guess. So anyways, that to say that there were of course still people that would voice their woes against me for whatever reasons they had. I knew a guy that for some reason thought that he was the coolest guy ever. He would walk around with this aura about him that pretty much just screamed being the meanest guy you know, and he would constantly voice all of his riveting opinions about women, gays, pretty much whatever you could guess, and he tried to be as patriotic as possible, living in the United States. So I feel like you really don't have to try there, but alright. Anyways, I remember this guy constantly telling me and telling my brother that I needed to cut my hair because, guys aren't supposed to have long hair for whatever reason he believed. I didn't have a lot of interaction with this guy, so I knew about this, but I never directly confronted him about it because, as I said, I just didn't interact with the guy very much. And there was actually another guy, and this is going to lead to a moral, so you're getting a little fable here. This guy was in a welding class with me because I live in a place that offers welding and woodshop classes and general agricultural stuff, as a lot of schools in my area do. So I was in welding class with this guy, and this guy was respectfully pretty big, pretty intimidating. He was tall, he was overweight to some extent, not too much overweight, but to where he definitely had some force and strength on him. So I knew that he could definitely do something if he actually wanted to. And this guy in the locker room, whenever I'd be dressing in or dressing out and passing him by, he'd constantly do stuff like pretty much just catcalling me, saying that he wanted me and saying in weird voices, "Hey boy," and things like that. And I kind of decided to just ignore it because he never actually made a physical move on me, and I decided that I wanted to test the theory on if positivity would really work on these kinds of people, because I want it to be known that I don't hate people that are against femboys or gays or anybody for that matter. And the reason why I don't is because I believe that these people have the capacity to change, and I think that's one of the strongest qualities that us as humans have in the first place, is that we are able to change and become who we want to be, who we should be, and what will actually define who we are. That was a mess of a sentence. So anyways, I started small. I would just do things. I would hold the door for him, or I would see if he needed help with something. And it actually started to work over time. At first he was doing things like saying that he thought I was a girl, which I kind of just said, okay. Or that he thought I was trans, and I again just responded, okay. I tried to act as oblivious to it as I could, showing that it did not offend me at all, and he slowly lowered that guard of being afraid of the unfamiliar, the fact that he didn't know what people with us are like. And I also want it to be clear that, as I said earlier, I've never been out to anybody at my school. I just look feminine, so he was purely doing these catcalls and whatnot based off of appearance in the first place. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I do look pretty gay, and, given that I am, I guess look how that turned out. But he was just doing it for those reasons, and over time, by the end of the year, he was doing things to help me. If I needed help with a project, he would be there to work on it with me, or if I needed help lifting something, he'd be the person on the other side working with me, and it felt like I was actually starting to get through to him. Now, unfortunately, this was my last year in high school, so I'm no longer there to keep trying to reinforce that positivity on him. but I think it might have at the very least started to make a change and made him realize that I'm just a normal person like everybody else with wants, goals, aspirations, needs, and all other things that make up people, and that my appearance or my sexuality shouldn't have such a massive impact on it. So that was a good thing to find out, definitely. And I'm glad that Dustin asked about this because I enjoyed talking about these experiences. But I would also like to use this as an opportunity to talk about insecurities, things that might make you not want to go out as yourself. Now, to be fair, I didn't go out as myself either, but the reason why is because my high school I knew was pretty unaccepting of people dressed like that or people that were gay, etc., etc. So for fear of my actual physical safety, I decided it would be better not to. And I also believe that if you are in an area where you cannot do things like dress out in public without being actually assaulted, potentially even killed or harmed in any other way by these people, then you should not do it. It's the sad truth, but you should always value your safety more than anything else. I don't want anybody out there to get hurt because I say something or because they think that it's a good idea to do it because they've seen it online. And I really, really wish that everybody everywhere could just express themselves how they want. But sadly, it's just not the reality we live in because there are hateful people out there. But all of that being said, I would like, again, to take this time to talk about insecurities as a whole. I'm going to get very personal with you about an insecurity that I've had for years at this point. I developed an eating disorder in late 2020. I had just lost my first real friend who actually ended up becoming, I believe, a femboy as well. He has femboy clothes at his house. I've never seen him dressed in them, but that would definitely lead me to believe that he is one. So, anyways, I had lost him and then met up with him again about a year or two ago, but during that dead space, I got sick twice in a row that year and lost 20 pounds. I've never been a very big kid. I've always been pretty moderately in the weight range, but I've never been that big at all, muscular or just body-wise in general. So losing that was a pretty big hit to me. I knew that it was alarming and needed to be dealt with. And someone I knew also had an eating disorder at this time. This, I would say, is before I actually developed the disorder. This was just when I got sick and lost the weight. But they would constantly say things like it was okay for them, or it was good for them, or it was helping them to treat themselves that way. And being an impressionable kid, I picked up those habits, and I would start eating only once a day, or sometimes not even at all, which would cause me to get sick and literally throw up any food that I would try to eat at the end of the day because I had waited for so long. I would get dizzy standing up. I would suffer from nutrient deficiencies. It would make living just harder, and it makes it harder to think, and it makes your entire body move slower, not just physically, but mentally. It makes you process things slower. It's horrible and difficult. But at first, I knew that this was a problem that needed to be addressed, so I did try to seek help, but nobody would listen to me. My dad would constantly comment on how I was skin and bones. He'd grab my shoulder and say it, or grab my bicep, or other people would grab my bicep and do that. And I tried to tell them that I didn't want them to, and they would just keep doing it. They would keep making those comments. And I brought it up to my aunt, who was a nurse, so I thought maybe she'd have something to say about it. And her only response was to just eat more, which that's like telling someone with depression to just smile more. I understand that the thought is there, but the problem is that it doesn't actually address the issue. It's just a way to wave it away so that you don't have to deal with it. So I just didn't have the heart to explain to them that it's a psychological problem. It's not just the fact that I'm physically not eating. It's the fact that mentally in my mind it feels like I don't deserve to eat, or that I shouldn't eat because I need to look better, or there's issues with how I'm feeling at the time, so I don't think I'd be able to, or the anxieties that I struggle with. And then I decided to explain the psychological side to my mother, and the only response that she had was that I deserve to eat, which doesn't fix the issue. Again, that's like telling someone with depression that they deserve to be happy. It might be a true statement, and it is a step in the right direction, but it is not a solution to the problem because it doesn't fully address what's going on. So, my insecurity about my body because of this disorder started to develop more. I noticed that my biceps were very, very small compared to everybody else around me, and that my thighs were really thin. So, I decided that I would just wear a long sleeve or a hoodie or pants all the time. And for the past 4 years, I've only worn that except around a very, very few people because of that perspective that I had. And anytime that I would just wear a long sleeve without the hoodie, because I forgot to mention, but the hoodie that I wear is pretty moderately big, so you can't actually tell how big my body is through the hoodie. But if I would just wear a long sleeve, or God forbid, have to wear a t-shirt for whatever reason my school required, there would unfortunately always be someone to comment on it, which would make it so much worse. Every time that I tried to get out of this insecurity, I would tell myself that people don't really care as much as I think. So then I would finally convince myself to make one of those steps, and someone would say something about it. I remember that I was changing out of clothes once, and this workout buff dude that I knew just bluntly told me that I needed to eat more, which I knew this guy and knew that he wasn't trying to be rude when he said it. He was just trying to be honest, but he didn't understand how much of a mistake that was to say, because that infuriated me because of the fact that I knew this already. I knew that sure, maybe I should be eating more, but I can't convince myself to because of the way that I'm feeling mentally, or the way that my body looks, etc., etc. And then there was this other time where I was in class, and I had decided to take my hoodie off in class because it was hot in there, and I was even wearing a long sleeve shirt. I wasn't just wearing a short sleeve, and the girl directly in front of me straight up just said to me, "Wow, you're really skinny." And at first, it upset me, but I tried to explain to her that that is the same thing as saying to someone, "Wow, you're really fat." And I say that because it's making a blunt and honestly kind of rude observation about somebody that they did not ask for. And then she decided to respond that it is not the same thing. And I disagree, because just because we're on separate sides of the weight spectrum does not mean that one is offensive and the other is not. As I stated, they're both comments on someone's appearance that they did not ask for that are inherently negative. Just because there are people in society that view being skinny as better than being overweight does not actually mean that either one is good for you. You can be too skinny just as much as you can be too overweight, and there is actually a healthy amount of overweight that you can be and a healthy amount of skinny that you can be, but too much of anything is bad for you. So all of that considered, and the fact that people kept propelling my insecurities, my disorder was not managed properly, and I stayed around 110 pounds for pretty much all of high school. Being someone that was about 5'8" at the time, or 5'9", I should have weighed about 130 pounds, meaning that I was about 20 pounds underweight. And sometimes it would drop to 105, and the highest it would possibly get is about 116. Now I still have not recovered. I'm still about 119, and now that I'm pretty close to 6 foot, that's pretty much about the same metric, sadly, but it is something that I'm working on. All of this is for me to say that you should not care about what others think, and the way that this ties into that lesson is the fact that discovering my femininity, discovering that I liked wearing these clothes or putting on makeup or looking this way, has made me more confident and happy about how I look than anything else has. And it's made me even think that I think I will go outside dressed femininely in college. I might do it on campus. I might just go out to places in town and do so, simply because I can and because I think it represents me better than just being dressed in regular cisgender identifying clothes, if that makes sense. Being feminine even motivated me to actually eat properly. I'm still not perfect about it, but I have 2 meals a day for sure, and most times I try to go for 3 if I think that I could fit it or that there's enough food for me that I can do so. And I'm very, very slowly but surely building that weight back now, all because I want to look my best, and ultimately that's one of the best qualities of myself that I want to be able to present to people is my appearance. So why not treat myself properly and get my reward in return, you know? I also wanted to share this insecurity about me because there are a lot of people outside of the femboy community who would like to be in it, but decide not to because they say that they're too big, or they're too small, or they're too masculine, or too hairy, or too tall, or trans, or not attractive enough, or they don't have makeup, etc., etc. I want you to look at this image of this fantastic lad and all of his greatness and tell me that he can't be a femboy, that he's not one. Because what? He's tall, he's strong, he's not wearing makeup. You can be whatever you want to be. And this man right here absolutely proves that without a shadow of a doubt. I know that it can be hard to push past others sometimes because people's opinions ring in your mind. Even if you don't agree with them, if you say something enough times, people will start to believe it. And that rings true for things about yourself just as much as anything else. But pushing past what other people think is the best thing that you can do for yourself, and you will be so much happier about it if you do so, because they don't get to tell you who you are. You get to define who you are, and nobody else has a say in that. They can give suggestions that you may or may not decide to listen to, but they cannot single-handedly direct which way you go in life, how you present yourself, and who you decide that you actually are. So always know that about yourself and be confident about it. Be able to go out in public as whoever you want, dressed however you want, talk the way that you want to, have the friends you want, the interests and hobbies that you desire, everything. So I know that this was probably my longest video out of these 3 that I've made so far, but if you're still here, thank you so much for sitting through this. And Dustin, thank you so much for breaking the ice on this comment and deciding to be the first one to give me a suggestion. And I've gladly decided to take it because this is an important topic. I know that I sadly wasn't able to directly answer it because I haven't gone out in public in certain ways, but I was still able to, I believe, turn it into something that hopefully you can get some kind of lesson from. So thank you very, very much for that, and thank you for sticking through this entire video. As always, if you have a story or a question for me, or you just have a suggestion on a type of topic that I should cover, you're always able to leave it in the comments down below, and I just might use it for a video in the future. So thank you guys again.